Okay. We'll just go through here now. I'm going to go to the next slide here, which is what I think the objectives are. And the number one thing is that the guests experience a real stolen night homes and the properties and feel the spirit, especially in the night home. The other thing is to better understand the central New York and northern Pennsylvania church history sites and their key events. I'm going to change that to, instead of help them tie the loose ends, is connect the dots.
Okay.
And then to have them visualize the Joseph Smith events in that area. And finally, to have them leave with a greater resolve to serve where they stand through the examples of the Knight family in particular. So when I talk about connecting the dots, it's almost literally like connecting the dots on the map. As you look in your map book in the back of your scriptures, you've got these places on the map, but a lot of people don't understand how they all fit into the general flow of the church history, you know, from Sharon, Vermont to Palmyra to Kirtland. So they're kind of like an appendix down there. And so let's see, you've been to Palmyra and have you been to Fayette?
Yes, that's where the Peter Whitmer and David Whitmer.
Peter Whitmer farms there. We've been there.
Okay. And then, so I assume, but you haven't been to the priesthood restoration site, as I recall.
No.
Okay, cool.
I think Fayette's as far as we got, wasn't it, Bob? Yeah. Yeah, we did Palmyra, Fayette. That's as far as we got.
Okay. So we're going to help people connect these dots somehow. Well, we're going to start with the Stowell home. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a way more detailed overview. And so what you'll be able to do is simplify from there.
Okay.
So here's the Josiah Stowell home. And this nice little stone that was put out there by the original owners to let the world know that Josiah Stowell was a friend of Joseph Smith. Okay. And there's a statue out there on the property. Looks like it's supposed to be here. Yeah. Come on in. It's like Cindy's able to join me now.
Yay. He can disappear with you.
Okay. She and Bobo the cat are here.
Very good, Bobo.
They're on better terms today.
Bob wants to know if they're on better terms.
The cat or me? Oh, he's still pretty, he's needy.
Needy.
Okay. So this statue out here is a life-size statue of Joseph Smith. It was done by this artist who has done most of the statues there at the Knight and Stowell home.
Is this the channel studio?
Yeah. Okay. So here it is. This is the Stowell home close up. And what we'd like to do is start outside with the tours. And of course, like it gives in the instructions, you're to bring the people in the front door of the home. So you'll go in and before you get started, you go in and unlock the door so that you can go in. Now, one of the things that struck me when we were living back there and looking at this home, it's a pretty classic looking home, But when you realize that Joseph Smith and Emma had to move 16 times during their married life, and in 4 of those times they had to just leave everything behind. So this is not doctrine here. This is not documented. This is out of the Book of Maury. Oh my gosh! I think we've got cat problems.
Got my skin.
He decided.
He's going to be a part of the tour.
So, he jumped up and he says, "Let's move this along. I want to show them the next one." This home here is a significant one in Joseph and Emma's life. This is where their love story really comes to fruit here with their marriage and so forth. So it's my theory that this home meant a lot to both of them. And so I was looking at that, and I said, I've seen another home just like this. And this is, you've been to Nauvoo, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we've seen that home.
Now look at the similarities.
Yeah.
So anyway, Josiah Stowell, this was his mansion, and he had I got a cat crawling all over me. He and his wife Miriam had 8 children, and that home was built in the late 1700s, and that's where they had their family. And he was what's called a Vermont sufferer. In other words, you remember the Green Mountain Boys from your American history? He was one of those that was the target of the Green Mountain Boys. And they had this settle between Vermont and New York, and they finally, the governor gave them money to relocate. So he's got this beautiful, as a part of the payments for leaving Vermont, he gets enough money to buy this, and they get this acreage here, an 800-acre farm, and builds his mansion, and he has a sawmill on the property. So he's a pretty wealthy guy. And when we start, we're going to go through the house here, and there's some key rooms here we're going to go through. Oh, man.
Here.
It's a cat fight.
I don't think you've made peace yet.
Gosh.
I'm glad this is all being recorded.
Bob said he's glad it's recorded.
He climbed behind the computer and was biting the cords. I was afraid he was going to disconnect everything.
So there are 2 main rooms that you'll be doing the guided tours through, which is, you start out in, call it the dining room, and then the parlor, and then you just basically let people tour the upstairs on their own. So when you go in, go into the dining room, that's what it's called, and of course you can see the feature of this fireplace. This was recreated. Here's where you can tell the story of Josiah Stowell and his first fascination with treasure hunting. And so you'll tell this story in this room. You'll notice we've got families sitting on the benches, and you recognize the family.
They look familiar to me.
This home, you can generally tell which furniture is fragile by, its make. This little rocker in the middle of the floor is kind of a feature. Now, what we try to do is not focus on the antiques and so forth that are in the rooms as much as what happened there. And this is one of the original rooms of the house where you can see the original molding and walls. there's still the predominantly the lath and plaster walls and the ceilings. So this is a good room to tell the stories about Josiah Stowell being fascinated with treasures and eventually hearing about Joseph Smith Jr. and hiring he and his father to come down and dig for the treasures down in Harmony. It's also here we talk about the story of the Red Hand. If you saw that from the video.
I'm turning my video off because of the internet. There.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So basically what you're doing in this room is setting up the story about them going down to look for silver and the treasures down in Harmony. But also in this thing you talk about the beginnings of understanding that Josiah Stowell really had high regard for Joseph Smith's character, to the extent that he defended Joseph Smith or gave testimony in his behalf in his first trial that he had here in this area. He had 4 trials here, and unfortunately the first charges were brought by his own nephew, Peter Bridgman. And he was Peter Bridgman was one of those family members that was really concerned that Josiah Stowell was getting caught up with this young man, and all of their assets were at risk for him being convinced to give all of his money to Joseph or something. I don't know. There was a lot of paranoia about Joseph. And so Peter Bridgman brought these charges of him being a vagrant and an imposter. Well, that's kind of curious because Joseph Smith wasn't a vagrant. He was working for his uncle. He was gainfully employed, and so he couldn't be a vagrant. But anyway, short of it is this is in the little town of Afton, and this is one of the places where those trials were held. And it was in one of those trials that Joseph Smith, or the justice of the peace, asked Josiah, he said, "Do you believe that Joseph Smith could see things in the ground?" Now, this is out of the affidavit here of those proceedings, and the judge says, do I understand that you're swearing before God under the solemn oath that you have taken that you believe the prisoner can see by the aid of the stone 50 feet below the surface of the earth as plainly as you can see what is on my table? Do you believe it? Says Deacon Stowell. Do I believe it? No, it's not a matter of belief. He says, I positively know it to be true. So anyway, you've heard about the story of the Red Hand, and that's in another account, the Red Hand on the tree. So anyway, you finish up with that saying, they come back from Harmony, where Joseph Smith prevailed upon the old man to give it up. And by the way, the old man was 55 years old at that time. And anyway, it come back to to Josiah Stowell's home. But Joseph has fallen in love with this Emma Smith down there in Harmony. Now, when we come out of that room,
Can I just say something here?
mm-hmm.
That it's a lot of information that he's given you, and Richard spent a lot of time studying, and he has a wealth of information. And when you're in
before you came in, I said I'm going to give you the detailed version of it, and they can shorten it.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to say is, in a pinch, I think what people really like to know is that Josiah Stowell was a wealthy man who employed Joseph Smith, and he believed in what he was doing. And he was a supporter of the prophet in those early years, and it was much needed. The Lord put Josiah in the right place at the right time. And Josiah had obviously had an influence on Joseph, because you can see that kind of from their homes. Joseph kind of felt like, maybe I've arrived if I can have a home like Josiah Stowell's. So Josiah was an important part of the restoration, in that he was that go-between between Joseph and Harmony. And that's how he actually came to meet Emma, is through that association with Josiah Stowell, because she had an association with him too. So, you know, all those other things, it's hard to remember, and as you're studying, it'll come to you, and there will be a few people that may want to know all those details. And you guys probably know a lot more than I ever did when I went into this, but when you're,
I doubt it.
well, when your mind is blank and you're thinking, what do I say? It's just the main points really that you need to remember in these homes, and let the people feel as they walk in this home. They can see that obviously he was wealthy. Does that make sense? Was that too much? You didn't want me to do that?
No, that sounds good.
Okay, my husband's not speaking to me. I'll have to shut up.
That sounds good. And we'll take all the tips we can get from both of you.
Okay, I'm going to zip it now.
Okay, so this is walking now towards the parlor, and this is the parlor, and this is where you're going to tell more or less the love story of Joseph and Emma. Because the reason is because you got a nice comfortable setting there. We have people sit down in those chairs, and actually, if you got a small enough group, then it was kind of fun. I like to sit in this chair that's just on the right there until
That's the chair that the owners asked us to please not sit in.
this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this one. No, that one.
No, not
The-
this one.
oh, so
I
the-
never did sit in that.
The wooden rocking chair by the fireplace is very fragile, and the people who restore
That's off
this home,
limits then.
and the people who own this home ask us to please not let people sit in that one.
Okay.
So the feature,
Nice pictures on the mantle there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that fireplace was not there originally, or if it was a different kind of a fireplace. That mantle around that fireplace is from the Squire Tarbell home. As you'll recall, he is the one that married them. So the owners were able to get that.
Can I tell this one? Is that okay?
Yeah, so now when we come into this room, this is where it was fun to have Cindy tell a story. And then I got to play kind of a role. So this is where you might divide that up. And well, we divided up all of the tours between us so that it just wasn't one person giving the tour.
Richard gave the majority of the tours. But this particular one I really enjoyed giving in the Stowell home, because it's telling of their love story. And so we would invite them into that room, and when he was finished, I would say that it was on a cold January night, January 18th, 1827 to be exact. And that was when Emma was there visiting. She had been visiting her sister Elizabeth, and she and Joseph were together, and with Stowell's promptings and his encouragement, strong encouragement, he convinced Emma that she could marry Joseph. And they left this home on that cold January day, and they went across the road and across the river to Squire Tarbell's home, and they were married on that very day. And they took a cutter sleigh across the snow. And when they got to Squire Tarbell's home, he had two fireplaces in his home, and one of them is in the Afton Museum and the other one is in this home. And so on that cold day, you can almost imagine they would probably stand in front of this fireplace to get married. And so 50-50 chance that they would stand before that very fireplace and express their love to each other and get married. And they came back to the Josiah Stowell home, and they had a small get-together there with their friends and family. Josiah, I'm sure, provided, for that, and they stayed for 2 or 3 days, after which, then that was their little mini moon, was right there in that home. They stayed in one of the bedrooms upstairs, and we don't know which one. And then they left and left with Josiah Stowell home and went to Manchester, to where Joseph's family was, and that was where they established themselves in the early part of their marriage.
That's a neat story.
Yeah.
That's what you do in this room then, Cindy.
I did. I actually, once in a while, I'd have a little bit more of a part in the living area where he was, especially if there's children, and children want to know about things in the room, like there's this candle. They called it what do they call that? The courting candle. And the tale goes that if the father of the house liked the particular man that his daughter was dating, then they would have more candle to burn. He would let it go up so that there was plenty of room for the candle to burn, because the rule was when the candle burned out or got to the top of that little piece of wrought iron, that he had to go home. And if the father did not like a particular man that his daughter was dating, then he would make sure that there was just a short piece of candle and he would have to go home in a hurry. So it just depended upon how much the father liked this man and where that candle was situated. And also that little rocker that's in there, if you pull out you can pull out the little, there's a little thing on the, you can't see it because it's down below the computer line, but there's a little railing that you can put on either side of this rocking chair. It's like a dual one, so that mother could either put the baby on the left side or the right side as they sat in front of the fireplace. You can show them that as well. And kids can't sit in that either. No one can sit in that.
So, in summary here, Josiah Stowell was very influential as a matchmaker, and and he knew Emma's father, Isaac Hale, because they were both wealthy, and anyway, so there was a connection there before Joseph Smith came on the scene.
Well, this is the time too that if people ask questions about Emma, girls especially are interested in Emma. Emma was quite a catch. She was 5'9". She was athletic. She could ride a horse and she could canoe. And she was educated, and she kind of compensated for the weaknesses for poor Joseph. She kind of made him actually more respectable. And so it's kind of neat for young women especially to know that Emma was very refined. And you can kind of understand why her dad, Isaac, was upset by the fact that she was falling in love with Joseph, because he had not raised her to marry this man, especially this man who had these outrageous tales of religion. And so she was a catch for anyone.
So she talked about the cutter sleigh. That's what we guess it is. This is the Squire Tarbell home where that old fireplace mantel used to be. And there it is. Now, one of the things I like to do in this room is you're probably going to broaden everybody's understanding of Josiah Stowell and the role he played. And that's one of the fun things about this, is to help people understand him and to appreciate how much influence he had on the events of the Restoration. And people ask, well, did he ever join the church? And we have pretty strong evidence that he did. On this little table here, there's a letter, which is called the Martha Campbell letter. And then about 6 months before the martyrdom, this is something that came through the Joseph Smith papers that we're really grateful for, because Josiah Stowell was very sick at this time, but in December of 1843, like I say, just months before the martyrdom, she wrote this letter in his behalf to Joseph Smith in Nauvoo. And in it, again, this is such a choice find in the Joseph Smith papers, because it talks about how much he longs to be back with the saints, and that he calls it, he wants to have the milk of the church, because he's here alone now, for whatever reasons, and we don't know for sure. He left, and then he came back home, and we don't know because of if he was sick or if he had second thoughts about all of the property he was leaving and the responsibilities with his large family or whatnot. But he came back home and was dutiful to do that. But in that letter also, he talks about, she says he wants you to remember that it was he who was the one that first received the golden plates in the Smith home when you brought him back that morning. And he wants you to know that he's never faltered in his testimony, and a number of other things. So you're going to help, I hope, people deepen their appreciation for what this guy did, especially considering that he even had to support Joseph at the expense of the relationship in his own family. But finally, kind of in a little kind of fun postscript way, he says he wants you to remember, he wants you to know that both he and I send $1 to maintain our subscription to the Times and Seasons. And it's kind of like saying he wants you to know that we're still taking the enzyme.
You know, in the Josiah Stowell home, some people may ask about the low staircase. That's the original staircase of the home. And the stairs are very narrow and it's very low. And
I'll show that in just a minute, so I'll come to that. So there's another curious thing that I love to bring to light here is when the Joseph Smith paper project was underway, they opened up the First Presidency's vault, and in there they found this 23rd commandment. And this is one that specifically names Josiah Stowell. Well, it names 4 people. It gives them a commandment. And this is significant because it's more evidence that Josiah Stowell had higher standing than we ever knew before. And that is that the Lord commands through Joseph Smith for Oliver Cowdery, Hiram Page, Josiah Stowell, and Joseph Knight Sr. to go to Canada to, well, first of all, to secure copyrights to the Book of Mormon, and then go up to Kingston, Ontario, Canada, and endeavor to sell a copyright for 4 provinces in Canada. And so that was an interesting find. But anyway, that's just, you'll see that on the wall in both homes. But that's because they like to bring to light that both Joseph Knight and Josiah Stowell were named in commandments. So go ahead, and this is the stairway.
Yeah, and it's really low. You're going to have to be really careful with people going up the stairs, especially with kids, because the railing on the top is very, very low too. It can be a hazard, so you'll need to watch children closely. But one of the reasons the staircase is so low is so that as women went up, of course, they had long skirts. And so they would pick up the end of their skirt with one hand and be able to hold it so that their feet could clear each step. So they would bring that skirt right up and just walk along the railway. And so they made it the perfect height for women to be able to get up the stairs but not show too much ankle. Yeah, isn't that sad?
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, heaven forbid. Now we have people come through with short shorts and you try not to look. You just look away. Upstairs, you can see that the floors are...
So one thing that we ask you to do, and over by that bust of the Savior on the little table is a guest register. And we just ask you to have them sign the guest register. Keep track of those that are there.
Is that Deafness Scout?
No. Okay, go ahead.
The planks are very, very wide in the home. You notice it downstairs when you come in the entryway, and you really notice it upstairs. And as you're looking at this picture, and to your right is the room that they've decorated kind of for the period. You can see it on the right of your screen as well. Oh, they don't have this one? Oh, okay. He'll show you a picture of that room that's got an antique quilt, and it's got a picture of Joseph and Emma in later years. You can tell because they're both a little pudgy in these pictures. And but anyway, the width of the plank is kind of represents how wealthy you are. The wider the plank, the more wealthy you are. It's kind of like when people have these beautiful marble stone entryways, and we know how much that marble costs, and that these people must be really wealthy. Well, they would walk into Josiah's home and see these wide, wide planks and think, wow, this guy's got to be wealthy. So it was a sign of status.
So that's called, that's the original stand timber that was here standing on the American continent when Columbus came. And so it's premium cut. It's what's called a quarter cut wood. So it really, by today's standards, that one plank would probably cost $200.
Yeah. And it is the original floor when people ask. There's a place in the room downstairs too, in the living area where the fireplace is, where there's a cutaway of the wall where it shows the original lath plaster.
Okay.
So this was the room upstairs, which is the one closest to the Joseph Smith statue on the outside. And this is one that is typically made out to be kind of the showroom. Because of the size of the boards in this room here, they considered this must have been the master bedroom for Josiah and Miriam.
This is the bedroom just across the hall from that master bedroom.
This is the one that'd be directly above the dining room. So that's where we cross over. Let's see. I'm about ready to run out of my time for the Zoom session because I don't have a premium subscription.
Well, I do. You should be
Do you have any
setting it up on live.
Do you have any questions about the Josiah Stowell home though?
No, it's just beautiful.
Well, and remember too that the guests cannot go into the living quarters downstairs, the kitchen area. There's a cloth. We called it the veil. You can't go past the veil.
All right.
And they're not. And every now and again, you might find a wandering visitor, and you just let them know that that's not part of the tour. And upstairs, if they're are their docents staying with Kathy and Bob, or are they alone? Okay, so you won't have to worry about this. They actually then should be able to go into all 4 bedrooms and see all 4 bedrooms, but only that front bedroom closest to the statue on the outside is the one that's really decorated, period.
For that time period. Okay.
And the pieces in the home downstairs are period pieces, the same as in the Knight home, with the exception of obviously the couch and the overstuffed chair. People love going in there to sit. It's always nice and cool and comfortable after they've had a nice hot day and their feet are tired, and it's quiet in there, and you will get people who fall asleep, and it's okay. They just are resting. They enjoy it very much. Yeah, we had more than one person sit down and just say, this is so pleasant, that they, especially in the heat, that they enjoy sitting in there.
One of the fun things to do is, let me share the screen again.
This isn't an actual picture of him,
Oh.
because I didn't think we had one.
Can you see the PowerPoint again?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll go back. Oh, let's see. What was I going to say?
I don't know. You got me. Do you have the lath and plaster that you can show them?
The lath and plaster, I do. It's right. See the what do you call this chair right here? What's
It's
it?
just an overstuffed chair.
Right down. There's the chair right behind, right by the door. Well, both by the door.
They can't see your finger, can they?
Right.
That right in that little corner. That's where there's a little cutout showing the lath and plaster.
Oh, okay.
You guys know what I'm talking about with the lath and plaster.
Yeah.
You've seen plenty of old homes and stuff to know.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Both my grandparents.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's a replica of the golden plates that are sitting on that table right there. And it does open up, and it has a little tiny Book of Mormon in there. And in all of our time there, we actually gave away one tiny little Book of Mormon to a girl that was going on her mission. And as a rule, though, we don't give it away.
So
But
we don't hand out Book of Mormons or anything like that.
No,
well, if they ask for one, do we have some?
we do. Yeah.
In
So that what she's talking about. Because you see the gold plates right there. Those aren't
Yeah.
the real gold plates.
But sometimes kids will say, are those the real golden plates? And we'll say, yeah, they are. Come on over here. Open them up. And then they'll see a little Book of Mormon in there. So they do open up, and they're just kind of a novelty. People will sometimes ask about them. In the
Okay.
night home, in the bookcase, there are Books of Mormon. But you don't give them away unless someone has come in and said, I would really like a Book of Mormon. Then you can.
Well,
You don't offer.
No.
Now that brings up a good point, because there's a period antiques here, and the owner, this is owned by a widow now down in Provo, and they've worked hard to try to make it look as authentic as possible. And so they're very concerned about, well, for example, if you have to have children that are older than 17 to be able to live in the house and be docents. But of course, people can bring their young children in, but it's just important that you let them know out front that these are period pieces, and just encourage them not to pick things up.
That it would be costly to have to replace some of the pieces, especially like in the night home. And we'll talk about that when we do the night home.
One of the things that I did, and I was I got this idea from another guy, the guy who was a guide. He said that there were a lot of young kids in the group. He'd kind of pull them over as kind of aside and just say, "Come on up, I've got a special thing to ask of you." So the kids are all coming up like, "What is it? What is it? What can we do?" And he says, I want you to help me. Sometimes parents just don't understand about picking up things, and I kind of need your help. If you would, to remind your parents not to pick things up or touch things.
That
A
doesn't
little
work,
reverse psychology there, huh?
but it doesn't work with all kids. You get some that are super smart and they know exactly what you're doing. So you have to kind of
Okay.
pick the ear.
Your
Well,
audience, huh?
it worked
Yeah.
more than it didn't. So
Yeah, you know, when you've got really young children too, you can adapt to their age. We had more than one group in the night home that we played primary, where the kids would sit and we would sing primary songs, or one of the kids would come up at the pulpit and and give a little talk. You know, so parents appreciate helping to involve the super young. It's hard.
Okay.
well, the cool
Right.
thing about this is that since these homes are not owned by the church and we're not missionaries or anything, we don't have to follow the script or follow the same rules. The owners originally wanted people to come in and really feel and experience these homes, and that their philosophy was that antiques can always be replaced, but feelings can't.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
We'll do our best to make sure both feelings and antiques are intact.
Several times we would have kids come up and lead the music and sing a primary song in the little room that we call the chapel in the night home, because by then they're getting pretty antsy and you want to involve them. And so it's okay to do stuff like that.
So anyway, we'll wrap this up right now, not make it last too long, but I wanted to start out with the Stowell one. I will talk about what you do in certain situations where people don't have enough time, to go through with as much detail as we've shown you. Some people only have time to just walk in and walk out, and that's all they'll get. And that's true with bus tours too. Sometimes the bus tours will say we've only got 15 minutes.
They're actually some of the harder ones because you do have to they're on a very fixed time schedule. So you have to get them in, get them out, and it takes time to load them up, to load them off and load them back in the bus too. So
You've got, you'll have 2 Mormon Heritage Tours on your week here. And so in light of that, I've asked the president of the tour company to consider changing things. In other words, what we want them to do is to experience the crown jewel, which is the night home, and do that first, and then go over to the Stowell home, because it's kind of sad to see them all get out and get comfortable taking pictures and going around doing all kinds of pictures and realize that they've only got they've used up 45 minutes here at the Stowell home and only have 15 minutes for the night home.
All right.
with those bus tours too, Kathy and Bob, it's okay for them to use in the Stowell home. They can use the upstairs and the downstairs bathroom if there are a lot of people that need to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
In the night home,
Then we're responsible for cleaning those, right?
you are, yes, making sure there's
Okay,
toilet
all right.
paper and stuff in there.
Okay.
In the night home, there
All
are
right.
2 bathrooms as well, but we never really let them go in the upstairs bathroom where you were staying, because that was pretty private. You got all your stuff out, and so we only
All right.
allowed them the 1 bathroom downstairs in the night home.
Okay.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll call it good for tonight, and then the next one we'll focus just on the night home and some of the more general things about it.
This was really helpful.
Well, at least
Really helpful.
yeah, you can see what you're dealing with now that you see these pictures. And you just follow the spirit too. It is important to be accurate, like with your dates, and if you can't remember something, you just simply say, I don't remember the exact date, and people, you can usually find out on your phone or somehow, but don't be afraid to say, gosh, I don't know.
Well, we have Elizabeth, and so
She's going to
she's
remember.
pretty good about all of that stuff.
Well, I'll send you a couple of wonderful articles. One of our real good friends, his name is Larry Porter, and I think you took a religion class from him.
Yeah, I think I did. Church history.
And so he's written probably the most in terms of the history of this area.
I bet, yeah. I've been reading some of his stuff.
There's a great one that was one of the feature stories in the Ensign in 2001, and I'll send that to you that gives more of the detail.
Great.
Oh, now that
Okay.
Cindy brought up a good point, and this is, we actually sat at the dinner table in that Stowell home with, we had Sunday dinner with lunch with Elder President and Sister Spallino, and he's the director of the church history sites there in New York.
Oh,
And I'll tell you what we told him, and this is, I said, you know, it just seems like that the church hasn't talked about and it doesn't promote the Colesville area. And if you don't promote the Colesville area, it's kind of like you're trying to unwrite history, you know, because that's the integral part of it. And I said, we just want to be, we want to be on the same ball field with you folks, with all the other church history sites. We're on the same team, and we won't overstep the stories in Palmyra or Fayette or even Harmony, other than the story of Joseph and Emma. And at the same time, we'd like to fill in those, connect the dots for Colesville and Harmony and Bainbridge and these places that people aren't aware of.
that's important.
You know, actually, if you took us, and this is just a guess on our part, but if you took a survey of all the people that have come through and visited the night and Stowell home, I would say probably 60 to 80% of them didn't know that about these homes. And they only learned about it when they were either down in Harmony or up in Palmyra. So why that's important is a lot of these people that are doing their self-guided tours, they will have not accounted for visiting these two homes. So that's why it's important to ask up front how much time they have and just totally tailor to what their needs are.
Okay.
And it may mean that you don't get to tell the whole story, you know, to your satisfaction. It may mean all they get to do is see the inside of the homes.
Which, you know, and that's really okay, because the homes, just being in the homes, the spirit there themselves, you don't underestimate what actually being in the home can do. And and don't worry about giving, you know, not enough information. Really, I think what most people want to know are just the basics. And, you know, where does it fit? Where does it fit in the story of the restoration? It does. You can see the light bulb go off in their eyes when they're like, oh my gosh, now I understand. You know, I didn't know that before, but now I see it.
Okay.
One of those is, especially with Emma's baptism and the outlet that was dammed up for the baptisms over at the night home. That's probably the biggest one that people said, you mean this happened here? You know, they're trying to, you read it in scriptures all your life, but they're trying to understand how it happened.
Well, guys, save your questions then, because I think I'm well past my Zoom meeting limits.
What happens? Do you get shut off?
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to shut him off.
And if you need me to set them up, I can. So are we doing this next Thursday again with the Joseph Night Home?
Yeah. Does that work?
Yep. It sure does.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, thank
Oh, this helps so much. So
Okay.
much.
I'll send you the link then to the the recording if you should want to hear it over again.
Oh, yes, I do. And I'll send you my credentials so you can create the Zoom meeting, or I can. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I think you should, because you need to be the one sharing your screen. So
Yeah.
if you want. If not, it's okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank
We love you guys. Thank you. This was awesome.
We love you
Okay,
too.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Bye, Bob. Bye, Elizabeth.
Love you guys.
Love
Love
you
you
too.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.